Hi, I'm Kelly from Kelly Jones Jewellery. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this cute little heart pendant. It's made with a drilled heart, so it's like a large bead. It's got a hole from the top to the bottom, and it's got this cute little dangle addition on there today. There's a list in the description below of everything you need to make this, along with all my usual links. We've got Facebook, Instagram, Etsy shop, where I sell all my written tutorials if anyone is interested in looking at those. To make this pendant, you'll need 0.8mm wire, that's 20 gauge, and I've got two lengths at 12 inches, which is 31 centimetres, and I've got one length at 6 inches, which is 15 centimetres. You'll need 0.3mm weaving wire, which is 28 gauge. You need about 200 centimetres. Wire mine onto a bobbin. This is a Bobby's bobbin by Beadsmith. If you don't have one of these, you can just cut lengths as you go. You'll need a drilled cabochon or a large bead. I'm using a heart shape today. You can use any shape you like, and it's drilled from the top to the bottom, so it's just like a big bead with a hole all the way through. Usually you can ask your gemstone seller if they will drill it for you, the person who you're buying your stones off. Or you can pop over to Gail, who I got my stones from, on Facebook. Her group is Cabochon Cafe. Going to need a little stone as well. If you don't have one, don't worry, because you can just leave it out. But this is, I've got a 5mm little stone there, and it's flat back. You can use a cubic zirconia that's got a pointy back if you want to. I've got a pretty little opal for this one. You need two 3mm beads and two jump rings. Again, you can use whatever size you like. I've got a 10mm and an 8mm, outside measurement. Yes, so it's entirely up to you. So take your two longer lengths of your base wire, find the centre point with your thumb, and we're going to start just to the right of your thumb this time, so just above where your thumb was. So take your weaving wire, and we'll do 3 wraps around the bottom wire. And 3 wraps around both wires. So that's how we repeat. 3 wraps around the bottom wire, 3 wraps around both wires. Take your time watching all your wraps to keep it nice and tidy. So I've done 10 repeats of that weave, and keep pushing your weave together as you go. Cut the tail end from the beginning. Flatten down, always flatten down the sharp bit from a cut end. So next we're going to take one of these wires and just bend it to the back, either one. And then the one that's still straight, you're going to pop your bead on, or your cabochon. And then where that wire goes over the back, because my stone's got quite a flat back, I'm going to bend it down. So shape that wire to match whatever the shape of the back of your stone is. If your stone is more puffy, then just bend the wire over the back. So your weave comes straight up out of the top there. So hold in the back and the bottom if you can, hold in the back against the stone. We're going to take the top, we're going to bend it over to the right. Then we're going to bend that weave carefully over to the left. and bend it around so it comes back down to meet at the bottom there. And then you're going to take the top wire, you're going to bend that wire around again, and we're going to put the little bead on with a little 3mm bead. And then keep bending the wire around. So it comes around to meet the other wire. So the two wires are now back next to each other, but we've got this little curl with our bead on it. So when you're happy with that shape, we're now going to continue adding weaves to the two wires, the same weave that we did before, because I've already got my 3 wraps around the single wire. I'm now going to do 3 wraps around both wires, and then, so it's the same repeats as before. So I've kept repeating that weave. The amount of repeats that you do now depends on the size of your stone. So push your stone up, because my stone keeps sliding down at the moment. Oh, and you need to keep pulling your weaves together as well as you go. So the weaves need to reach to the bottom of the stone, but we're going to put a curve in the weave. So I think I'm going to bend that a bit more and just add another couple of repeats onto the bottom. So put a bend into the weave and keep doing these repeats until you reach the bottom wire. So when you're happy with the amount of repeats that you've done, make sure your stone is pulled right up on that wire. Make sure all your weave is all pressed together, compressed together. Where your 2 wires come together from the back there, we need to pinch those together. So take the back wire, oops, the back wire needs to come over the stone a little, because we need those 2 wires to sit next to each other. And then we're going to bend that back wire up so it sits next to that one. Do you know what I mean? So it comes over the stone, but it now sits next to that wire. So you must make sure that everything's in place before you wrap around these wires now, because once you've wrapped around them, that's where it's going to be. So push your weave down, push your stone down, and take these wires around the bottom wires. And as you go around, you want to try not to bend your bottom wires as well, because you might push them to the side. I think I have pushed mine to the side a little bit. So that's what we've got so far. So now we're going to do the same thing at this end as what we did for this end. So ignoring these two side wires, you're going to take your weaving wire up the back and we're going to weave across these top two wires now. So we're going to take the weaving wire up between the two wires. We're going to go 3 wraps around the top wire. And then 3 wraps around both wires. Exactly the same weave as we just did, only now it's upside down because we want our bend to go the other way. But I'll explain that in just a moment. So 3 wraps around the top wire, 3 wraps around both wires, and we need to do the same amount of repeats that we did at the other end. So we need to do 10 to then bend that loop around at this end. So I've done 10 repeats of that weave. So I'm just going to bend these 2 wires around just because they're in my way. So working on this top weave now, we're going to bend it over to the left at the base there, and then we're going to bend it around to the right. As we did for the other side, we want a complete loop. So we want this weave to come back and meet at the bottom of the loop. And we've got our wires around the loop this time. So make sure your loop's nice and straight. And then we're going to take the top wire and we're going to take that one around. As we did for the other side, we're going to add the little bead on there. So bend that wire up and then go and find your 3mm bead, pop that on the wire. And then keep bending that wire around. It's got to go all the way around and come back to meet that other wire. Do it nice and slowly. You can see the shape and how you want it to be. So you've just added an extra loop with the bead. If you don't have a bead, you can just loop your wire around. It will still look pretty. Or you can just leave bending that wire around off altogether if you like and just do the single loop. So where your 2 wires meet now, we're going to continue to add the weave repeats. And we need to add as many weave repeats as it needs to get back up to the top there. So the same weave as before. So we're wrapping around 3 times around the top wire and then 3 times around both wires. So again, the amount of repeats you do depends on the size of your stone. Keep pressing your weave together. I do like to just quickly flatten the weave over with pliers. So then this weave is going to sit next to the first one and it's going to curve around, follow the shape of it. And then I'm going to post the wires through the gap there and wrap them around that top weave. So you need to just work out first how many weave repeats you need. I've done a few too many, so I'm going to undo a few repeats. So I've undone a few of those repeats. So when your weave is the right length, just needs to reach the top underneath the bead there. I'm going to cut this weaving wire. And then we're going to pop these wires through that gap there. So I'm going to hold the weave so I don't misshape it too much. And then post the wires through the gap. And then you want your two weaves to sit next to each other. And the top wires go around that weave at the top there. Silver's a bit more harder to work with. If you're doing it with copper, it should be a bit easier to handle. When you're happy with the shape, you're going to take those two wires around the loop again. Like I say, if you're using copper, it's much easier on your hands, so that these two wires wrap nicely around that weave. As I do for the other side. And then when you're happy with the shape and the weave and everything's how you want it to look, we need to cut these wires off so they finish at the back. And then squeeze them around there with your pliers. Somebody advised me to put a cloth down so that when I throw my pliers down, because I am quite heavy-handed with them, that I throw them on a cloth. And I keep forgetting and throwing them on the surface, and I'm working on a glass surface, so it can be quite noisy. So I am trying to remember. So when you cut those two and they finish at the back, you need to do that for the other wires as well. Cut them off and squeeze them in place with your pliers. So I've cut those wires off and I'm happy with that, how that's turned out. So now it's time for the next part. If you want to stop here, then you can. You just pop your jump ring on the top and off you go. Or you can carry on and add the little, I'm going to add a little dangly stone off the bottom there. So this next part can be quite fiddly, and it might take a few goes to get it right. Take your small stone and your short length of wire, your 6-inch length of wire. We're going to wrap the wire around the stone. So position the wire centrally, so find the middle of the wire and put it next to your bead. My bead's got a flat on my bead and my stone, so my stone's got a flat back, so I'm just sat it on my finger like that. If yours is a pointy back, then put it face down so you've got the pointy bit sticking up. I've done this before on other videos of how to wrap a little stone. I'm sure I've done it more than a few times now. So we just take the wire around the stone, pinch it firmly between your fingers so that the wire comes around the stone quite tightly. Oops. And it may fly off across the room and take a few goes to get it right. So persist with it, because it is worth getting. You can add a few of these if you want to, and they're so pretty, adding the little stones this way. So I've wrapped around, so I've got it trapped in from the front. So now we turn it over, and now we need to secure the back. So leave the front wire alone now, we'll just focus on the back wire. So we need this wire to keep coming around the stone, but we're going to slowly lift it over the edge of the stone. It's so hard to show you what I'm doing because I'm holding it down, but I'm bringing that wire around over the back of the stone. If we do it really slowly, can you see that? So it's just curling around over the stone there. You've got to try and still keep it tight as well. So you've got a complete loop over the back of the stone. So that one has rode up a little bit, so I'm just going to pull that down. So you can see it's starting to take shape now. It's just wire curled around the stone to hold it. And it's actually quite secure when it's done. If your stone's big, then it's going to fall out, because as soon as you pull these wires, it's just going to drop out. So it needs to be a little stone. I usually use a 5mm stone. So you need to finish off with this back wire needs to come straight up. And the front wire needs to finish off meeting the back wire. These are really fiddly to do, and I'm really pleased that that's worked, because normally I have to do them a couple of times as well. But that's actually worked first time. So I'm quite pleased with that. That has gone in lovely. That's how you want it to be. So if yours doesn't look like that, pull it apart, start again. It is worth persisting with, because it is really lovely when it's done. So now you take your front wire and you very carefully, I'm holding it all together now in place. You bend your front wire around your back wire, and you've got to do it without pulling on the wire. You've got to kind of push the wire into place, because if you pull it, your stone's going to pop out. I don't know why that keeps going out of focus. It's bound to be something I'm doing wrong. So there's my little opal trapped, and then you need to cut that wire off and press it around. So I want it to finish at the back. Cut the wire off. And then press it around. So that way you're not pulling the wire as well. So once you're happy with the shape of that, we just need to shape the top part. Bend it over, grip it with your round nose pliers, and we're just going to make a loop. Just bend it around the pliers to make a circle. Cut it at the back. I'm still forgetting to put my tools on that cloth there. And then that's our loop. Just going to make that meet. So that's our loop that attaches to the jump ring at the top. You could do that loop smaller if you want to. I've done it quite big. So attaching all your jump rings, you're going to need a second pair of pliers. So I'm going to use this little jumping. And I need my other pliers, so we're going to open the jumping. So I'm going to dangle this on the bottom there. And I need to put, so the stone is that way. And then close that up. I need to put another jumping at the other end. So there we have it, finished, and I'm really pleased with that little dangle at the bottom. I really think it's worth persisting with that to get a little stone and to be able to add little stones to your pieces, because you can add them anywhere as well, and they look so lovely. So there we have it. I hope you found this tutorial easy to follow and can't wait to see what you make. Please mention me, a Kelly Jones design, when sharing your work online, and please don't show images of the back or in progress, as it gives the design away. Thanks guys, see you in the next video. Bye. Please subscribe if you haven't already.